This is a special meeting of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, teleconference open meeting pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5, Section 551.041 of the Texas Government Code of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Notice was hereby given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville would conduct a special meeting on Tuesday, September 29, 2020 at 5 p.m. via the WebEx teleconference meeting link provided at the City of Brownsville Agenda Center. Members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting hosted through WebEx teleconference could also join by phone with the numbers provided on the Agenda Center. Members of the public who submitted a public comment form will be permitted to offer public comments as provided by the agenda and as permitted by the presiding officer during the meeting. A recording of the meeting will be made and will be available to the public in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. We will now have roll call. I have Mayor Trey Mendez is present. Nura Golonsky-Pisanya is present. Commissioner Rose Gallen is present. Commissioner Jessica Tetro is present. Commissioner Ben Neese is present. Commissioner John Cowan, are you present? Okay, Commissioner Joel Munguia, are you present?
Present.
Okay.
Commissioner Munguia is present.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Okay, and so now the meeting is called to order at 5:03 p.m. We will have the invocation by Pastor Brad Burke.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for the many blessings we have here in Brownsville. And Lord, help us to remember those blessings when things are not exactly the way we wish they were. Once again, we ask you for healing for those that need healing. We ask for comfort for those that have lost loved ones. And we ask for clear direction for all of us, Lord God. Father God, we ask you during this election season to bring our nation together. Let truth be clear. And Lord, we ask you to lead and guide each voter with that truth. And Lord, help each one of us to conduct ourselves in such a way that we will still be friends afterwards. And once again, we ask you to draw all of our nation to you, Lord God, as individuals and as a nation. And here tonight, Lord, we ask you for a special anointing and wisdom on our mayor, Trey Mendez, and all of our commissioners and everybody that's presenting anything for the best for the city of Brownsville. And we thank you for all of these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. And let's take a short moment of silence where we can all add our prayers to what has been spoken. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Our next item, our presentation by the Arts and Culture Task Force.
Mayor Mendez, may I ask that we take things out of order and just do number
Commissioner Golonsky, your connection is
the items
breaking
for
up.
individual consideration.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, your connection broke up. Can you say that again?
The items of individual for individual consideration taken up first, since it's quick, and then we'll go back to the original order.
Okay, you're asking that we take up item number 6 for individual consideration first?
Yes,
Okay.
please, because the ISD superintendent is there and it shouldn't take very long.
I understand. Counselor, there's no issue with that, is there?
No issue, Mayor.
Okay, can we just go ahead then? All right.
Thank you.
I know that Dr. Gutierrez is here. Dr. Gutierrez, will you be presenting, or who's going to be presenting on this item? Is somebody from the city going to present first?
Yes, first of all, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioners, for allowing us to be on the agenda and to have this presentation. I'll be just giving a brief introduction, and then Dr. Cantu will go over about 4 or 5 PowerPoint slides based on our request. So we're making But basically, what we are asking is that to see if the city could do some matching funds with BISD on some of the technology and devices that we have spent over the last 8 months since the pandemic started. As a school district, we have been already invested over $8 million in devices, connectivity, and hotspots so that we can provide our students with distance learning and our teachers so that we could keep everyone safe. So far, we have done an excellent job as a school district to provide almost every child with a device, over 40,000 students that we have given out devices, and students that did not have access to the internet, we were able to buy over 15,000 hotspots so that we could provide the students with hotspots at home. And these hotspots have a service for the students to have available for a full year without charging the parents any fees for having the hotspot available for a full year. Of course, it's costing us a lot of money. It came out very unexpectedly. And we've been working with our local funds. We've been working with some funding from the state level and also from the coronavirus relief funds. And we're trying to see how we could be able to find ways to continue providing the technology services and the internet services to all our families, parents, and students that are out there. At the same time that we've done this, the whole city has benefited from this. All the employees of whether it's the county employees, city employees, district employees, or anyone out there in the private sector, every family has benefited from our own initiative of getting students devices and hotspots. So there's this grant and there's a possibility of matching some of it if the city would help the district with some of the expenses that we've incurred over the last 8 months. And like I said, it was a very unexpected expense that we weren't ready for, but we had to provide it because of the pandemic. And mainly to keep everyone as safe as possible, keeping all our students at home. The Texas Education Agency allowed us to provide distance learning without having to open our campuses. And all of us, including the city, we've been advocates to keep everyone as safe as possible by keeping our students at home as much as possible until the number of cases slow down in our area, because we are still an area that is a high area as far as positive cases of COVID-19. And if there's this grant available and if there's a possibility that the city could do some matching funds with BISD, because technology is here to stay. And as far as moving forward with our school district and how we are going to be providing distance learning and hotspots and internet access to our students, because some students may not be coming to school at all for the remainder of the year. The parents are going to have that choice to stay at home and be able to provide distance learning with throughout the year. And so this is what basically what we wanted to talk to you all about and have an agenda item so that there's a possibility to be able to match some of the expenses that we've incurred. We're all in this together and we're trying to do the best that we can. And I know that there's an initiative by the city as well to try to have internet access to every resident in the city. And we've already taken a big step in that direction already by what's happening with us buying devices, buying hotspots for almost all our families so that our students have access to the internet as well as devices to continue the instruction that we must continue to have and that we're required to have by the Texas Education Agency. So that's just an overall summary of what we have been doing in Brownsville ISD in trying to have connectivity with all our families and all our students throughout the community, where everyone benefits. The school district, the city, and the county is benefiting from this Operation Connectivity that we've been initiating, and we've been very successful in making sure that I would say that over 95% of our students and staff have access to the internet through the hotspots or internet access that they already have at home, along with the devices that we purchase for every single child. I'm talking about kids from pre-K 3 all the way to 12th grade have devices. The lower grades, we bought iPads from pre-K through second, We bought them all iPads. And then 3rd through 12th grade, we bought them Chromebooks. And then again, we also purchased quite a bit, about 15,000 hotspots for families that lacked connectivity at home. We were able to provide them with internet access. And so it's taken a large amount of our budget. And if there's a possibility that the city could do some matching funds, it would be greatly appreciated to continue to provide the technology and internet services that we need to provide, not only for this school year, but distance learning is going to be here to stay as an option for students to have at home moving on, not just this year, but for years to come. And so I think we're headed in the right direction. This is, I think, one of the initiatives that the city also wants to have, is to be able to have connectivity to all the families and all the communities around Brownsville. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Cantu to just go over about 4 or 5 slides, just to give you a breakdown of the funding that we have been incurring over the last couple of months and the expenses that we've been having as a school district. And just to make sure that we provide the technology and the internet services to all the families in the city of Brownsville and Brownsville ISD. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Dr. Cantu.
Thank you for that. We're going to give our city secretary just a chance to read the item very quickly before Dr. Cantu goes, please.
Okay,
Okay.
item 6 was consideration and appropriate action, if any, authorizing the city manager to enter into and execute a CARES relief funding agreement with the Brownsville Independent School District pursuant to their request for funding from the city of Brownsville under the state of Texas Coronavirus Relief Fund Matching Program.
Okay. Can I turn it over now to
Yes, sir.
for Dr. Cantu?
Yes,
Okay.
doctor, thank you.
Thank you so much. And let me go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Cantu just to briefly go over our expenses on technology that we've had over the last 8 months. Go ahead, Dr.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mayor Mendez and commissioners, thank you so much for the opportunity to come before you and share this presentation with you. I'm glad that you have a copy, because what I'd like to do is jump into page 2 already. We can turn that page and talk a little bit. I'd like to provide a little bit of context as to what we're going to be talking about. Dr. Gutierrez talked about the fact that when the pandemic got here, we didn't know what was going to happen. The schools were shut down, and then we learned that there would be some distance learning. As a district, we acted quickly and making sure that we were going to have devices and internet connection for our students. But TEA also came up with what is known as Operation Connectivity, and this is under the CARES Act. There was a $200 million allocation, and it was a partnership. You can see on the far left the groups of people that came together to come up with an idea as to how they could support the schools with connectivity. And the whole intent was to connect all the students, because they knew that some students would not have devices, some students would not have reliable internet connections. If we can go on to page 3. So the Operation Connectivity, TEA divided it into what we call 2 buckets. The first one was a bulk order. And what that meant was that whatever we ordered and that we paid for through the district funds, the TEA would match it dollar for dollar. And so we could not send this purchase for any other reimbursement, because that would of course be double dipping in other funds. So, but they were going to match dollar for dollar. And what we want to talk to the city and the mayor and to this group today is that TEA allowed for some extra matching funds. Those funds, we don't have access to them unless we partner with the city or the county. And of course, all funding is subject to availability and demand. So if we jump to page 4, what I'd like to do is give you an overview of what BISD has purchased. BISD has invested, if you notice, through Operation Connectivity, they sent us a survey and said, what are you going to be ordering as a district? Well, we identified that we needed 10,000 hotspots. And so we ordered that. You can see the cost of that. We also ordered Dell laptops. The Dell laptops we ordered were 6,500 of them. And the Apple iPads, we ordered 2,000. So you can see that the total was $2.2 million. Now, TEA matched the 2.2 also. The total cost was a total of 4.5. But what I'd like to do is have Mr. David Robledo, our CFO, discuss page 5 and 6, because that's where we're going to talk about the funding that is available only if there's a match from the city or the county. So Mr. David Robledo will join us.
Good evening, everyone. And so when we look at what else did the district do for all the children here in Brownsville is the next wave of orders for the district. And so with that, on slide 5, the district went ahead and purchased more Apple iPads, 4,000 of them. And also Dell laptops, we bought an extra 2,000, and Verizon hotspots, 2,000. And when you add up all three orders, another $3,008,000 of technology items was purchased with that. And so when you look back at $2 million from earlier, another $3 million that we purchased in July, we've already started receiving them in August, September, and there's a few still out there that we're still pending, but the majority of the items will be here and in the next couple of weeks. And so when we look at that 2 million plus the 3 million, and then now we have the matching piece, this is another way of teaming up with the district and with the city to try to help, I guess, cover some of these costs. They're already in the pipeline, so it's already going to be happening with our local funds. But once we found out that TEA was going to come back and say, if a local entity, meaning the city or the county, would put in dollars, TEA is going to match it again. And so they did put a limit. They did say 25%. So now I'm on slide 6. So TEA said, you know what? There's another opportunity. There is funding at the state level that if a government entity, meaning the city or the county, wanted to participate with the district to help purchase all these technology items, that TEA will come and match again a dollar for dollar program. And so since we bought 4 million from the very first one, 2 million of them, 2 million of us, they did say, you know what, this is going to be a cap at 25%. So the most that we can ask for from TEA is 25%, which is $1,132,000. And so now the big question is there a government entity here in the Valley who's going to help and partner up with Brownsville ISD to get to that magic dollar? Now, that's the max, the $1,132,000. If we had all that money, that'd be perfect. TEA will come in and match that. But again, if there is some funds available for technology that's already been allocated at the city level, anything will help. And the best part of it is that whatever the city of Brownsville is able to help, TEA is going to match that with a dollar for dollar type of match. And so, again, we just kind of try to share the 3 different types of options. In a perfect world, in the bank, if you had it, 1.1 million. Sometimes there may not be. And so we were also reaching out to the county and seeing maybe we could get the two entities to come and help. Or, again, anything will help. And so that third one is any amount that's agreed upon by the city of Brownsville would be graciously accepted and reported for that. And so whatever that dollar amount will be matched with by TEA. And so there's an opportunity for the district to request in grand total the $2,265,000. And so let me turn it back to Dr. Cantu.
So Mayor Mendez and commissioners, we've shared with you an opportunity that we have that is only available if there's a partnership. we're asking for your consideration. We're asking for your support to help the ISD. We will continue to do what we need to for our students and our community because our superintendent and our board have been very supportive in making sure students have what they need. But the support that we're asking will help us with this cost. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about next steps. I know you will probably have, you need some time to have some conversation about it. But as a next step, TA, during a meeting just today, they extended the deadline for a commitment. We need an MOU. Let's pretend that I want to believe that the city of Brownsville is going to be very supportive and it's going to partner with us. The next step would be we would need to have an MOU stating that the city of Brownsville is willing to partner with BISD. At this time, we do not need the funds. That would be something that would be arranged between the city and ourselves as far as a timeline. What they need is a commitment letter. The date is October the 15th, no later than October the 15th. And that commitment letter, we would submit it in an application to the Texas Education Agency, and then they would be able to release additional funding for us that, as I mentioned before, we don't have access to. And at this time, I would like to entertain any questions that you may have.
Dr. Cantu, this is Mayor Mendez. What is the status right now of distance learning? Did the state grant the ISD's request? I've heard different things, so I'm just trying to find that out first.
Yes, Mayor. Distance learning, what TA allowed us the first 4 weeks of the school year to start at 100% distance learning. And then we asked for a waiver for the second 4 weeks to start a transitioning phase-in, because they will only allow us to have students coming in if they don't have internet or if they don't have a device at home. But they only granted us the first 4 weeks of school for students to be 100% at home. But after the first 4 weeks, they gave us that waiver. But in that waiver, what it means is that any student that doesn't have a device or they don't have internet access, they need to start coming into our campuses. And that's where we are now. We are in that phase-in of students that don't have internet at home or devices. Are the ones that are coming into our campuses. Now, there's a second waiver that TA may allow us, is an additional 4 weeks to continue operating that way. In other words, only the students that don't have a device and internet to continue for an additional 4 weeks. But the bottom line is TA wants us to start bringing in students to campus. And right now, that waiver would only limit the kids that don't have a device or internet.
Okay, so then, as of right now, then, have you submitted for an additional waiver?
Yes, we have a board meeting scheduled for October the 6th, and we are going to put an action item for the board to consider requesting TEA for that additional waiver to have another 4 weeks. And I've already sent an email to the Texas Education Agency this week that we are going to be requesting the waiver for an additional 4 weeks. So it's still going to be pending approval by TEA. And we know that some parents, even when we're allowed to bring in all the students, we know that a lot of parents are going to they're going to have the option or the choice of remaining through distance learning at home. Parental choice is going to be there. If they don't want to bring their child to school, they can still stay at home through distance learning. That's going to be a parental choice for the remainder of the year, from what we understand.
Okay. I know that y'all are stating you want to partner with the city. I've seen the request for funding, but what does the partnership entail that you're proposing?
The partnership is more of, that's the way that Mayor Mendez, TA refers to the support of getting from, let's say, the city of Brownsville. It's a partnership because we're owning the fact that, okay, we need to work together to help this community, to help all the children and all the families. So that's what it entails as far as a partnership. TA references it because we're working together to solve a problem for the community.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners have any questions?
I do.
Yes, Commissioner Neese, go ahead, sir.
Okay, so the first question is, as you mentioned, we're trying to have an initiative in the city to provide Wi-Fi or internet for everybody. Has the city of Brownsville or our consultants already reached out to BISD to see how we can collaborate?
I can answer that question. Yes, we are a partner. We are our board approved a memorandum of understanding. So we are at the table having conversations on how we're going to bridge the digital divide. So we are part of this MOU with the city.
And the BISD primarily works through Wi-Fi? Is that how they're getting access? Or if they already have Spectrum, for example, they can get in through that way. But the people that don't have that, what is their method of connection?
Yes, that's where we ordered the 10,000 hotspots. So what we did is we asked all our principals to survey our parents who needed a device. So we gave one hotspot per family. Now, Dr. Gutierrez did talk about the fact that there's some students that don't have Wi-Fi, and we found that there's some areas near the border of Mexico that there is no towers. So even if we provide a hotspot, they don't have internet connection. So we have hotspots available for every family in our district that needs a hotspot.
Okay. And then this one, I guess, is more toward Mr. Bernal. Are you anticipating, based on what I'm reading on item number 6, that any of this funding would be coming out of the CARES Relief Fund?
Yes.
That is Commissioner Neese, that's what the request entails. The program is designed to request CARES funds from the cities and counties. Mr. Granado is prepared to provide that overview for the commission on where we are with the allocation that we received.
Okay. All right. So then we haven't already allocated 100% of what we've gotten from the government. Is that right?
We have committed it. Some of it is not fully used.
Okay. All right. Because I thought we had committed it. That means we may have to take something away from certain organizations, right?
Certain efforts, yes.
Okay.
I do want to say that even though we have hotspots for every family, where there's families of multiple kids that are attending our schools, they need more than one hotspot. And that's an area that we need to improve on, because if you have 3 or 5 kids that are attending our schools, the same family, one hotspot is not going to cut it because it's not enough for the rest of the children. So we still need to improve in purchasing more hotspots, because some families need multiple hotspots due to the number of children that are attending our schools. But we are headed in the right direction, that we have provided one for every family that didn't have access to the internet. But some families are going to require more than one hotspot due to the fact that there are several children attend our schools, and one is not enough. We will need to provide them with more than one.
I want to applaud your efforts on that, because that seems to be the easiest route to connecting is through Wi-Fi. And I can understand the broadband or the bandwidth is getting used up in larger families. So I support that a lot. I'm a little concerned here about where we're going to get the money, but hopefully Mr. Bernal can come back with a good plan for that.
Right, and I would echo Commissioner Neese's concern too about the funding. We'll hear from our people right now on the funding, but I know that this has exposed the real issue, which is the connectivity throughout the city, right? And because this pandemic hit us and we weren't obviously expecting something like this, you had to kind of pivot and figure out ways to get people connected and be able to learn remotely. This, I think, also shows how important the city's plan is for the broadband and the digital divide. And the difference, for those that may not understand, that the difference is what the city intends to do is lay the fiber, lay the actual fiber in the city, as opposed to Wi-Fi's or hotspots or MiFi's, right? So that's the difference. I can understand that this is a quick fix, kind of like the Band-Aid solution to get everybody connected. And we're working on a longer term solution, and I'm sure we can count, obviously I know we can count on your support for that, but anybody else have any questions?
I would just make a comment on your reference to the fiber. You know, that should be left open, because that means it's going to become like utility, which is going to be a cost. And there have been efforts in the past to try to provide for free Wi-Fi throughout the city and not have to hook up like PUB for electricity or water. And it seems like that's what you're indicating there. But if that's what the experts are saying, I think that would be.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
So I just want to commend BISD for making sure that every student has access to education during these times that are so trying and detrimental to all of the progress that we had made in all of the years before. And as one of the most poor cities in the nation, I don't know if we can still be considered that, but recently we had been. It's so important. Education is the number one thing and the answer to take us out of that, category and reality, right? So I definitely do support, even if we have to look at some things and reallocate and maybe even, shift monies from accounts, whatnot, whatever it takes to do whatever we can. I don't know if we can do that amount. That's a lot of money. I mean, obviously, as you know, the situation we're in, it's, there's only so much money. The same way our bodies only have so much blood that we can take out before we have a really big problem. And I just, if we had all the money in the world, we would have all of our streets paved. Our drainage would be in a much different situation than it currently is in, but we do what we can with what we have. And just want to reiterate that. And I would also look into projects like Starlink with SpaceX to see if maybe to find out exactly when they're coming online, because I know that's worldwide Wi-Fi for those of us that have been following along. And just to look at any projects like that are coming about. I just really want to reiterate that we support you and we support every child having access to the internet. And learning right now, especially, we don't know how much longer this is going to drag on through, right? Like we're barely hitting flu season and the colder months. So I just really, really want to reiterate that I support even teachers being able to just connect through Wi-Fi and not being exposed to students, and any students that can staying home. So whatever I can do to contribute to that, I'm all for. But of course, within limitations and what I have available. So I really want to thank you for what you do. And I know that these decisions are very hard and this is going to be a very big sacrifice, but the ultimate goal is education. And that's what we just really need to stay focused on, but we really need to exercise any and every option out there before we spend this money that belongs to other areas.
I have a question for BISD. I'm assuming that the family that gets a hotspot can use it for other things besides education, or are they limited to use it just for schoolwork? And the reason I ask that is that the pandemic has identified the gap, not just for education, but for access to healthcare and communication with physicians and clinics and so forth.
Yes, they can use those hotspots for the family. It's internet, it's unlimited, so they can use it for healthcare or other areas that they would like to use it. It's available for them.
And my second question is, you've done a great job in the past with parent education outreach groups for different topics, especially in health. Those are the ones that I'm most familiar with. Do you provide the families who haven't had access before some education, information, tutorials, whatever you want to call it, about how they can use the Wi-Fi now, not just for school, but do you let them know and teach them, hey, you can reach out to your clinic or your doctors or your hospital or your pharmacy or whatever using this hotspot?
Yes, that's a great question. And I'll tell you that we believe and know the importance of getting the family involved. So BISD has created videos, educational videos for our parents on how they can access different websites, and they're available for our parents. In addition to that, we have a parent and a family and parent engagement center and office, and we are making sure that we're reaching out individually to families to make sure, are you having any concerns? How can we help you? We also have a BISD hotline available. Technology is available, so parents and students can call the hotline, and it's been a popular hotline recently. We've gotten a lot of calls from parents on support. So yes, we do as much as we can to support our families.
Because they may not know to ask those questions. And so that's why I'm asking. It's a great gift to have a free hotspot for a year. So why not take that out and use it as best as completely as you can Half of our patients at the clinic don't have email, so we can't communicate with them regarding results or appointments and so on and so forth. But those don't know how to use it even if they had it. So they wouldn't know the right questions to ask. So I'm just encouraging you not just to have a hotline, but actually proactively show them this is how you can use it. And these are the things that you may not have thought about.
It's great recommendations, and we'll certainly take that into consideration. Thank you for that. I think it's an area that we can learn from and continue to grow.
And for sure, they'll have devices, to do that, because we're providing the devices to the children. Even if there's 3 or 4 kids in the family, each child has a device, their own device. If it's a lower grade child, it's an iPad. If it's an upper grade child, it has a Chromebook. I think the city of Donna, the city of McAllen are working with the school districts to place towers or antennas around the city to be able to have internet access. Our request here is, since we're already into the school year and we're trying to provide the distance learning services, is to be able to see if we could match dollar for dollar to be able to continue providing the hotspots, the devices, as much as possible, so that all the families benefit from the partnership between the Brownsville ISD and the city of Brownsville to be able to do this. I don't think nobody's done this in the Valley, this type of request. So we may be one of the first ones if this is an MOU that can get through, and both the district and the city of Brownsville together can start this dollar for dollar and be able to provide the technology services that now it's part of our daily lives. It's going to be part of every family's daily life. The technology, the internet services, due to distance learning. Like I said, distance learning is here to stay. Is not going to go away. In fact, it's just going to continue to grow more and more because we learned from this pandemic that, and a lot of kids and parents are learning that online classes is not a bad idea either. And so kids may be able to come face-to-face part of the day for instruction, and then the other part of the day is going to be online, or some of them are going to go 100% online. So something good came out of this pandemic, that online classes in the public schools has taken off now and is here to stay.
And I would like to just take a moment to express just our sincere gratitude, and we hope that you will entertain our request. And if there's additional questions, please feel free to let us know. We are here to help you. I think at the end of the day, we have the same goal. We want to connect all our students to reliable devices and reliable internet connections.
Is there, Dr. Cantu, is there a deadline for this? Do you need the approval by a certain date?
Yes, Mayor, the approval we have until the 15th of October the 15th. The funding does not need to be available at that time. It's just a commitment. So the MOU would state something to the effect that the city of Brownsville wishes to partner with BISD and contribute this amount of money to help connect students. And so it's just the agreement piece that we need to be in place by the 15th.
Okay. Mr. Granado, do you have a presentation for the city?
Yes, I prepared a brief recap of the CARES funding that we have right now and items that are still have been allocated, but the funding is still available. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. In summary, just to get a recap, the city started off with having a strategic reimbursement strategy with the CARES funding. It's about $10.2 million. We understand the strategy needed to be organizational needs, financial stability, using CARES funds to help us in the budget year for 2021. Teleworking facilities retrofit so that once we reopen, we have facilities being able to get customers to the facilities, public communications, ongoing COVID communications, equipment and supplies, including PPE supplies, community needs. A big one was drive-through testing and the expansion of the drive-through testing application software that would handle the testing. We also had some business needs, partnered with various community organizations, BCIC, UT, TSC, to provide some tentative programs for the communities to enhance their resiliency, e-commerce items, programs of that sort. The initial $10.2 million was tentatively allocated in the PI grant fund here. Again, it started with hazard pay, teleworking equipment, retrofitting, testing facilities, PPE supplies, disinfecting of facilities. To date, the expenditures we've incurred has been about $8.2 million. The breakdown of that is listed on there. A pie graph representation of that is listed on there. You'll see a lot of it is attributed to personnel costs and testing efforts for the city. The following worksheet, this is a worksheet that we use to track our category of expenditures. The first column on there is actual expenditures that we've made through September 23rd, totaling $8.2 million. The estimated projected amount, those are the ones that budgets that we estimate that we project that we're going to need through December 31st. Thereby expending these funds need to be expended by December 31st of $10.2 million. As you see in the column, the second column, mid column, we have about $2 million that has not been spent, but has been tentatively appropriated for those efforts. Those efforts being testing, PPE supplies, disinfecting of facilities, communication efforts, hazard pay. Big one is retrofitting facilities. Those items on there. So, like it was mentioned, it's allocated. It could be appropriated, but that would mean some of these items the funding would have to be decreased in order to make those commitments. One of the items that we do see an opportunity here is on the civil service pay, the $394,000 that's there. This was fire department has not allocated the 2 months worth of hazard pay stipend for this, and it's tentatively about $240,000, $250,000 on there. Those fundings, there might be an opportunity there if those fundings will not be used or be used by December 31st. That's still yet to be determined if that's going to be happening. Others would be on the retrofitting, reducing the retrofits on some of the facilities in order to accommodate this request. Those are just ideas that possibility, but again, making those commitments would decrease the funding availability for those efforts. Any questions or further elaborations?
Does anybody have any questions for Lupe? So, Mr. Granado, I mean, basically, all of the CARES funding we got, we have plans for it, right?
Yes, sir. That is the plan.
And if there's any room, it's on potential hazard pay, which is not that much to begin. It's $394, is that right?
Actually, it's only about $250,000. There is going to be use of hazard pay under December. Actually, the second month of hazard pay for civil service police officers will take up the difference. So technically, on that line item is about $240, $250.
Okay, so if there's any room here, it's really just $250, right?
Yes, and again, you would if the other one we retrofit, but we would be cutting into the retrofitting of facilities to provide services to our community.
Okay. Mr. Bernal, have you looked at this? Do you have any sort of recommendations or anything?
Yeah, Mayor, I met with Lupe on this, and what he's relaying are things that we discussed. I think the first thing would be the civil service reallocation. We're going to likely have an arbitration that will span a year's time or more, that we need to spend that civil service money before December 31st. So I think that 250 is the more straightforward funding that we need to obligate and use, and not just obligate, but encumber. The other one is retrofits. If we were to reduce that by 250, that could be a way to get up to $500,000 if the commission so desired, and that's basically one of the requests. I don't see us being able to get to the full 1.3. If you look at testing, that's an important initiative for us. And then there's a project that the Utah School of Public Health has requested some support for that would come from that line item there. So option one would be to the 250 within the civil service line item. If you want to supplement that with 250 more to get to 500, we would take that from the facilities. That would be the $500,000.
I have two questions.
Yes, Commissioner.
So one of my questions was, if I saw correctly, it was also, did it say that it could be through the city or the county that this funding would be matched through?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. My dog just ran by the window outside. He escaped. Hang on.
My understanding is that there could be a match as well from the county. I mean, cities and counties, right?
I have a question. Do we need to actually decide on an amount right now? Because me personally, I'm very inclined to helping out and participating to help out the community. Now, I think there's going to be a lot of questions, and I would hate to put a lot of this pressure on administration right now to decide on a number. I would say maybe can we take a little bit more time to try to figure out what we can contribute, and talk to the county as well to see how much they're willing to come up with as well, and see if we can I guess leverage as much as we can so we can help the community as much as we can without putting the city in a situation where, you know, in a bind in the future.
Sure, that's why I asked the question, Commissioner, about the timeline to see if this was something that needed to be, you know, get done today, or whether we just needed to maybe take a little bit closer look and see what it was we could do or what we were comfortable doing. But yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. But I don't know what the rest of the commission would like to do. If we have any motions to any effect.
Can I just say something? Since
Yes.
Representative of District 1, which is probably one of the most impacted areas, the families in my district are probably the ones that would benefit most from these services that BISD is offering. I do want to support them, because before they fall behind in their education, the worse off it is to come up. And so I'm going to make a bold suggestion, or just throw it out there. There's an economic development organization who's presenting its budget later and has already announced that they've recovered over about $800,000 that they previously thought that they were going to spend. That would be an investment in human capital. It would be an investment in the community. If we can find a way to spend some of that money, I think this would be a good use of it. So I'm just throwing it out there.
So back, sorry, my dog opened the gate and I don't know, heard us and ran right here by the window. But he's back in his backyard. So I'm sorry, my question was, the county is also able to contribute. Were they going to contribute?
Thank you for asking that question. On the county, we have contacted the county as well, but the county had already spent their monies. I don't know how much the county got from this fund, but we contacted them and they had already utilized the money in some county-wide projects that they had. And I think it was about $1 million, if I'm not mistaken, what they got.
Okay, and
Received $5 million.
I think you had reiterated, but I just needed to ask again. When you said partnership, how exactly did you see the city becoming partners for this money?
Well, it's matching dollar for dollar. You know, that's what, if we can have this partnership then with the city, then TA would match us dollar for dollar in continue to provide the technology and the hotspot devices for our students.
Good
evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I just would like to add that this portion would be part of the 25% of the the relief funding. There's different categories. There's 6 categories within the relief funding. So this portion would fall under that 25%, which is the last 3 categories. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Manita. Okay, do we have any motions?
You said that you needed it by October 15th, right? If I heard you correctly.
Yes, we just need to submit an MOU by October the 15th. I think an amount can still be negotiated or discussed at a later time, but just to submit an MOU by October the 15th, that there will be a partnership between the city and the school district. That's what we need to submit to TEA.
So I would make a motion that since we have a meeting coming right up, October, isn't it
6th.
next week?
Next
October
week.
6th,
Yes.
that we have an answer for you by then, or at least at that time, so that staff can have time to look at the numbers and we can all understand them and decide on an amount, but no later than October the 6th.
Second the motion.
Is that a motion to table, Commissioner Gowan?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to table by Commissioner Gowan. We have a second. Is that
Second.
Commissioner Munguia?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to table. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, items tabled to the next meeting. Thank you, Doctor. And this will give us a chance to discuss a couple things and see how we can help. And I think we all want to help. Just a matter of how much we can do.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for giving us the time to present, and hopefully we can have some partnership to continue providing services to our community.
Absolutely, Doctor. That's the goal. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I'm so sorry my dog crashed during my,
No worries, Commissioner.
a very mischievous Cocker Spaniel.
Okay, Ms. Morgan, now that item number 6 for individual consideration then has been tabled, so we go back to the presentation, which would be the Arts and Culture Task Force, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Well, we see the presentation on here. Somebody gonna present? We have everything coordinated?
Yes. We need to have slide 1. There we go.
All
Are you
right.
ready now?
Welcome,
Okay.
Dr. Garza. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, Mayor Mendez and members of the commission. My name is Diane Garza. Today, the Arts and Culture Task Force appointed by the City Commission is here to present our findings. Could we have slide number 2, please? What has been identified is that building a vibrant arts and culture infrastructure for Brownsville is a social and financial investment that we need to make. Further, in looking for ideas to grow our economy through arts and culture, I have found that virtually all Texas cities our size have had formal arts and culture planning organizations for 20 to 30 years. While the concept of a formal planning organization for art and culture, especially with all of the financial rewards it is capable of bringing, has not been developed in Brownsville, is a really good question. But the fact is that you were the first group of city leaders and the first group of city administrators who have considered this notion. This is important because it's not only a proven strategy for funding, but it is also all about quality of life issues. What is this vibrant arts and culture infrastructure we are hearing about? It's the kind of infrastructure that is alive and active all over other parts of Texas and our nation. This is what helps attract consistent outside funding. This infrastructure is required for assistance and support from the Texas Commission for the Arts. This type of infrastructure is also required, or at the very least desired, by most major funders of art and culture programs of any size. In looking for ways that we might approach the idea, I have found that there is much support and many opportunities available to us that we may not have even considered. I have reached out to a friend of South Texas to lend us her considerable support and encouragement in our efforts to build our community and our economy through the arts and humanities. She has reached out in the past to help us build local philanthropy. Please allow me to read a letter of support from Cecilia Abbott, the First Lady of Texas. To the City of Brownsville, and whom it may concern, it is my privilege to serve as First Lady of Texas and travel all across our great state. During these last 6 years, I have seen the incredible diversity of culture Texas has to offer and the world-class art created and showcased here. In the arts, we see and we experience the echoes of the past, the reflections on today, and the hopes for tomorrow. The arts connect us with our Texas roots and introduce us to the vibrancy of all the cultures that make our state so strong. My initiative as First Lady combines the two things I am most passionate about, Texas and philanthropy, and seek to promote all the ways Texans are helping each other through volunteerism and service. We can all give more of our time and talent. I encourage you to consider the way the arts can contribute to your community and the opportunities it provides for the citizens of Brownsville to become even more connected to their city. With kindness, Cecilia Abbott, First Lady of Texas. Can I have slide 3, please? Now the task force members will each give their report. Each task force member will introduce themselves as they begin their statement. Any views or opinions expressed by those of the individual presenter and not are those of the individual presenter and not the views of the collective task force. The task force is not putting forward any official recommendations. It's merely reporting individual research. So we can start with the first, with cultural arts.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is Roy de los Santos. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you, Roy. Thanks.
Excellent. So the team was given 3 tasks. State designation was not feasible in the time allotted given the moving parts necessary for a successful application. And the other 2 assignments you gave us were creation of a proposed arts and culture plan and recommending to the commission whether a formal committee is feasible and in the best interest of Brownsville. The plan is simple enough. Put an individual or a team in charge of coordinating and collaborating programming throughout the community and marketing of arts and cultural offerings. This will require capital and resources. So the real question is funding and execution. For funding, we can dedicate a percentage of tax revenue to arts and culture. We can seek exclusive or supplemental outside grants and funding, or develop a self-sustaining model. Next slide. For execution, we can repurpose existing city staff to lead efforts, appoint a formal committee to lead efforts, or utilize an existing formal committee or group to lead efforts. Next slide. This slide provides some possible partners for and emphasizes the importance of taking an independent reading of where we are today, as well as putting in place an independent mechanism for monitoring, measuring, and reporting back to the Commission the impact of any efforts. Next slide. The Commission clearly recognizes the value not only to quality of life, but the potential positive economic impact of a robust arts and culture program. This is why you created the task force. Tonight, you'll receive supporting information, different options, and recommendations on how best to move forward for Brownsville. For my part, in these trying economic times, with the city's finite resources and all of the demands which require the city's attention today, my recommendation is that the city continue to advance its relationship with an existing body and plan in the effort to develop a self-sustaining model. This can reap all of the benefits without being a draw on taxpayer funds or resources or a burden to the families of Brownsville. And if in the future the economic winds change and we'd like to step up efforts in this area, we can adjust the plan accordingly. Next, we have Marcela Hinojosa to talk to us about visual and performing arts. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? The arts are the expression of creativity and reflect the unique heart of the city. It is the image and purest manifestation of its soul. The arts impact our local and state economies, preserve preserve our culture, and enhance our quality of life, with an advantage of attracting and retaining workforce and tourism. Through time, Brownsville has been a bridge of cultural exchange from the United States to Mexico. Inspired by the passion of its residents, Brownsville has more museums and cultural events than anywhere in the region. For years, Matamoros and Brownsville have been in the news because of this unique cultural dialogue and genuine artistic exchange of nations. South Texas is known for its internationally renowned cinematographers, actors, film directors, artists, and performers that were born and made Brownsville their inspirational home. To name a few, like Visual Arts, Ray Smith, Academy Award nominated film director Julian Schnabel, producer and international visual artist worldwide. Bianca Marroquin, megastar, Broadway singer, dancer, and leading actress in Roxy in the musical Broadway musical Chicago. Chris Christopherson, singer, composer, actor, and winner of the Grammy Lifetime Award and the Country Music Award, the Golden Globes, and an Academy Award winner. Roberto Cantoral, Mexican and international singer, composer, and winner Latin Grammy Trustee Award, and more artists that honor our city. Brownsville is proud to be a city of music and festivals, and we truly have rhythm and music running through our veins. Our international famous Charo Days festivities will be celebrating its 87th year. Charo Days is a true experience of joy and cultural diversity, a life lesson for future generations. In 2020, Crossroads Festivals comes together with new generations bringing learning and entertainment, connecting the arts, politics, music, food, and innovation in a wonderful experience for all of our community. The development and future growth of Brownsville depend on us to value and celebrate our present, future visionaries, patrons, and leaders. And in 1964, Ms. Camille Sams Leitner founded and opened the Camille Playhouse to the community. This amazing facility educates and produces Broadway musicals and plays that have featured such shows as The Lion King, Downton Abbey, and many, many more. Since 1944, the Brownsville Society of the Performing Arts enriches our quality of life through cultural entertainment, producing hundreds of shows and cultural events featuring local, regional, and world-class artists, participating in live musical concerts, dance performances, master classes, music and dance lessons, and clinics. The Latin Jazz Festival, the only international festival in Texas, will start celebrating this year its 25th anniversary, and we're going virtual to make it happen. The City of Brownsville, BSPA, CDBG, BCIC, ROCA, UTRGV, and the exceptional visionary leadership of George Ramirez made perfect moment for the Stegman Building located in historic downtown to become the George Ramirez Academy for the Performing Arts. Children and youth will be able to participate in music and dance lessons. It would also host the renowned program El Sistema, an inspiring youth musical program that seeks to effect social change through the ambitious pursuit of musical excellence. The Brownsville Museum of Fine Art was a vision of 8 women of the Brownsville Art League. Through the years, it has had the opportunity to host world-renowned exhibits, international artists, co-productions and collaborations with National Geographic, the Salvador Dalí sculpture exhibit with the Museo Somaya, the Tyler Museum, and the Frida Kahlo Casa Azul Museum, as many more collaborations. Culture is one of the most noble expressions of civilization. It consists of the beliefs, customs, traditions, and ethical and moral values and aspirations of human experience. Brownsville has all. Anything is possible through the wonderful work, vision, and devotion of patrons and sponsors. We are privileged to have incredible persons of passion like Mary that is also here, and I'm so glad she's here with us in this presentation, and Frank Ituria, Alexander Stillman, Earl C. Sams, Gladys and Camille Sams, and many more that are making, through their generosity, our community challenge. The real power is in the cooperation of government, civil society, the private sector, and their community. Our challenge is to inspire, recognize, and move forward to preserve and continue developing our legacy. Together, we will continue to create and promote the events and venues that will facilitate the continuation of our unique Brownsville culture. Thank you for inviting me to contribute in this wonderful Arts and Culture Task Force, and we can make history together, no doubt. I will always be proud to be part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcela.
Thank you.
Is there another presenter? Who's next?
I think you're on mute.
Yes.
It's yes, it's
can I have
Stella.
the next slide, please? Next one, next. Una más. Yes. So, well, okay. Hello, my name is Estela Valdez. I am an art lover, a passionate for architecture, and an advocate for preservation. And I would like to say that it's a privilege for me to be here in this task force because, well, my love for architecture, but I'm so happy to be here in a beautiful city that has such a beautiful range of different styles of architectures. And I would like to say that, well, Brownsville has one of the most distinctive collections of architecture in the United States and has the second highest number of surviving historic buildings in the state of Texas. Historic buildings are beautiful, but they also serve as touchstones to tell our story and define the character of our community. It is a unique heritage that we can serve as a vehicle to teach, but also to draw people to our community. It can serve as an economic driver going forward in difficult and uncertain times. We have several different styles that are originated here in the Valley. And well, we all know the border brick style that was evolved from Matamoros, and it was done by making bricks here in our regional ranches. Then how this beautiful city became like a cosmopolitan place with the trade, and how we got influences from New Orleans and from Charleston. We can still see those examples of iron cast architecture. And then how with the railroad, we got so many more influences as well. So we got Tudor style, Mediterranean revival, Craftsman, Queen Anne, and many other styles. And well, with the jewel also of international style, the Krieger House, the Noche House, which is a jewel of like the modernism. So it's a pleasure to be here in this course task, and I also share the same values of sharing with the community, educating our community, and in my case, preserving. And I would like to close my statement with a quote from one of my architect friends from here, from Brownsville, which I found like super appropriate. So he said that our incredible architectural heritage and historic neighborhoods are like a tapestry. The tapestry is a delicate thing. Each of our historic buildings are like threads, carefully holding the ancient fabric together. If you lose one or two threads, nothing happens. If you lose too many, the tapestry disintegrates and is lost forever. This is a legacy worth saving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stella.
Could I have the next slide? Hi, my name is Wolf, and I'm presenting for Public Art. And the examples here on your first slide, you're seeing some really good examples of some of the cities around the country that have installed sculptures large and small, but public art doesn't only have to be sculptures. It can be murals, it can be public performances, it can go, it's really a broad category, but public art can actually contribute to tourism. So I think that we should keep that in mind. Can I have the next slide, please? So public art can beautify and reimagine public spaces. It can cultivate local pride of place, and that is citizens getting involved in the art decision, assist in economic development and growth, and we can really support our local artists and artists from other places, but really sort of tell our stories, our culture, and our history. In my research, a successful public art division would establish a fund for the acquisition, production, and maintenance of public artwork. That can be a large fund or a smaller fund. We can, work with both. It ensures public art would be at the forefront of all conversations in major development projects. And for instance, San Francisco gave the option of requiring a percentage of project costs to be devoted to public art, or you had the option of putting it in a public art trust fund. It would supply a transparent process by which artwork is commissioned, and what that means is just citizens and residents can be involved. We would create a mentorship program where local artists can learn all the things related to the public art process, create a catalog and archive of public artwork throughout the city, and that is San Antonio created a map of its public art sculptures, and so you can go on there and see all their sculptures and who they're by and what year they were installed and all these different really sort of great informational things. It would ensure public engagement and input. I think that's really important for our citizens to really sort of grasp public art in their spaces, in their neighborhoods. It would pinpoint available sites for future artworks. And lastly, it would cultivate and maintain public-private partnerships to contribute to the progression and development of public artwork in Brownsville. So thank you so much for having me on this task force. And next slide.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
In summary, today, the value of and impact of arts and culture is well understood. Research shows arts and culture make the biggest difference in the quality of our lives and in the quality of our collective life as a community. The arts and humanities are able to address many of the challenges of our time, from poverty to environment to respect for human rights. It is said that art feeds the soul, but culture and the arts also fuel the economy directly. The arts contribute more than $800 billion a year to the U.S. economic output. Can I have the last slide, please? Arts and culture include such areas as history, performing arts, visual arts, language, philosophy, museum studies, literature, religion, and design, and those you might not regularly consider, like tech data, health, environment, and well-being. Art influences the formation of our humanity. The art of the written word, the visual and performing arts can empower, can create perceptions or change them. It is all so powerful, it can inspire people to actually give their lives for a completely abstract concept such as patriotism, bravery, love, honesty, resolution, loyalty. Think about it. How did you learn all of these things? How have or will your children learn all of these things? The answer is from the art and the culture around us. The contribution of arts and culture to improving physical health and well-being has been extensively studied, and art education involves teaching through all the art forms, and that takes place inside and outside of schools. Our historical culture in Brownsville is certainly rich. We have an incredible array of treasures to celebrate here in architecture, in aviation, in military history, and in our unique bicultural customs of celebrations, traditions, and foods. The biggest thing, the most important thing that we are missing is that infrastructure. But we now know what we have been seeking. And now we know we have new support all over the state and new networking opportunities all over the nation. Thank you for tasking this committee with this research project. We consider it an honor to submit this information to you on behalf of our community. Thank you very much.
Dr. Garza, thank you so much. And if I can, I want to thank all y'all for your work up to this point. I know it's been a few months and a lot of work for all of y'all, but I really do appreciate it. And I would just ask if we can get, if the commission can get emailed a copy of this presentation as well, so we can see in a little bit more detail, because it was a lot of information. So I think we'd like to digest it, and we know we have a jewel in our hands now. Just a matter of how do we get the most out of it. So thank you all so much.
You're so welcome.
Okay, are we ready to move on to the public comment period?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have 5 public comment forms that were received. The first one is from Curiat Castillo. Are you present, Curiat?
Yes.
All right, Curiat, you've got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
My name is Kiriat Castillo. I am here in support of the arts and culture presentation. I'm a third-year theater major at UTRGV, a member of the Latino Theater Initiatives, a Roca Scholar, and one of the resident artists at Brownsville's Repertory Theater. I know of the incredible ways that arts, culture, and humanities support all of the areas in our community. I also know of the struggles of funding for more information sources for sustainability and growth of these types of nonprofits. I would like to read a letter of support for the Arts and Culture Task Force's research from Dr. Stephen Block, the Dean of UTRGV College of Fine Arts. To the Commission, I want to begin by stressing how important the work of the Arts and Culture Task Force is to the future of the City of Brownsville. I write as the Dean of the College of Fine Arts at UTRGV and as a board member of the Brownsville Museum of Fine Arts, and finally, as a friend of the late George Ramirez, who served on my Dean's Council and who passed away almost a year ago after a lifetime devoted to bringing arts to the people of Brownsville, the children especially, in the ways that were almost quixotic. It shouldn't be that hard to achieve some of the dreams George had, and in the city the size of Brownsville. We forget how important the arts are to our self-image, to our future growth. There are many economics papers that detail the important relationship between cities that support the arts and fiscal growth, and to the proud culture that we want to pass on to our hijos, nietos, and bisnietos. Brownsville already has a good foundation in some of its museums, some of its annual events, the zoo, the Camille, and all the concerts held at the Performing Arts Center on campus. But it is only a very small and sometimes fragile and basic foundation, as we are all experiencing in this time of the pandemic. One good thing about COVID-19 and its interminable Zoom meetings is that it gives us more time to think and work in an online meeting environment that can be more cordial at times. And this is a good time to strategize and to shore up a more complete and comprehensive vision of how the arts will be supported and integrated into the very fabric of everyday life in Brownsville. As someone who has chaired many accreditation visits and served on art councils myself, I know that there are many granting opportunities out there, opportunities that are aimed to underserved populations, at communities that are less wealthy, and at populations with diverse cultures. The key to all such funding is almost always leverage. The first question any organization asks is, what are you doing to support this project that matches the commitment that you are asking of us? Here is where city government can be helpful and where relationships within the state of Texas come into play. Having a cultural district is a good thing, but the questions will always be asked regarding how vital the cultural district is. How many people make use of its services? How does the city support financially, of course, understanding the budgetary constraints that Brownsville endures, but also how does the city promote and maintain the vital vitality of its culture? The Arts and Cultural Task Force will be sharing vital comparative data and may be commissioned to do further fact-finding in the future. Brownsville needs to have a close relationship with state funding agencies and especially art agencies like the Texas Commission for the Arts. We have great and creative leaders in the arts of Brownsville, and I know the Commission will give a careful hearing and consideration to the views of these leaders. Sincerely, Dr. Stephen Block. Thank you.
Our next public comment form was received from Joe Medrano. Joe, are you present?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Medrano, we can. Ms. Morgan, can you keep the time on this, please? and let us know when the time limit expires?
Yes, sir. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Medrano.
Very good. Good evening, Mayor Mendez, commissioners, and guests. My name is Joe Medrano, and I am a lifelong resident of Brownsville. I'm here to offer my support of the arts and cultural infrastructure efforts in our wonderful city, to ask for yours, and to read a brief letter of support, coincidentally, from Dr. Gutierrez at BISD supporting these efforts. The letter reads as follows. It is with great pleasure and honor that I provide this letter of support and statement for the importance in celebrating and the organizing support for local funding of arts, culture, and humanities in our city. The Brownsville Independent School District is celebrating 105 years as a public school district whose mission is to graduate students who are prepared to excel in higher education and successfully pursue career opportunities in a changing global society by maximizing resources to ensure equitable opportunities for all students. Since 1915, our rich history and culture spans with our first original campus, Pughnet Elementary, to our most recent Daniel Breeden Elementary, whom have fascinating backgrounds. Our traditions must be kept alive to continue to tell the story of our wonderful culture through our award-winning fine arts department and other organizations as established in our beautiful city of Brownsville. We must continue to showcase our amazing work, promote our recognition for being a top-rated performance district through the Texas Education Agency. Please consider the importance of organizing support and ongoing local funding for arts, cultural, and humanities. Signed, of course, Dr. Rene Gutierrez. And as a last note on this, I have worked side by side with many local nonprofit organizations for most of my adult life. Many of those organizations support the idea of building an infrastructure for arts and culture in this beautiful city. Among those, but not all of them, are as follows. ROCA, Revival of Cultural Awareness, BISD Youth and Philanthropy, Texas Southmost College, UTRGV Fine Arts, Brownsville Society for Performing Arts, Girls on the Run, Good Neighbors Settlement House, Costumes of America, Tipatex Family Outreach, Carlota Petrina Cultural Center, Healthy Communities of Brownsville, Brownsville Museum of Fine Arts, Sunshine Haven, Big Heroes, Brownsville Repertory Theater, Damas, Friendship of Women, Brownsville Wellness Coalition, KXIQ, Brownsville Public Radio for the Arts. Again, this is a partial list, not all of those that support this. We ask for your support for arts and cultural efforts in the city of Brownsville. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, our third public comment form was from Margarita Perez. Are you present?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. My name is Margarita Perez. I'm here in support of the arts and culture presentation. I know of the incredible ways the arts, culture, and humanities support to all areas of our community. I also know of the struggles for funding, for information sources, for sustainability and growth of these types of nonprofits, especially the grassroots organizations from our poorest neighborhoods. I would like to read a letter of support for the Arts and Culture Task Force research from Damas. The letter is in Spanish because Spanish is the first and primary language of our members. Muy estimados miembros del equipo de trabajo designado para la difusión y el crecimiento de las artes y la cultura en la ciudad de Brownsville, Texas. Agradecemos infinitamente a la ciudad de Brownsville por el interés y disposición para crear oportunidades y al igual designar los fondos necesarios para que unidos en comunidad sigamos celebrando la cultura, el arte de nuestra población y difundir el talento de todos los artistas locales, al igual que de artistas invitados. Agradecemos el apoyo incondicional y las inversiones hechas para que los niños y jóvenes reciban las bases principales para su formación e identidad cultural. Al igual para los adultos mayores que con sus vidas dan testimonios de que las artes y la cultura son esenciales para el desarrollo humano, creando así ciudadanos con valores y convicción de ser capaces de formar familias con tradiciones y raíces que impacten generaciones enteras y así fortalecer sus vidas con mayores oportunidades en un desarrollo integral y con gran calidad de vida. Roca Damas del Centro Cultural Carlota K. Petrina se enorgullece en crear compromisos y empoderar a la comunidad que a través de su participación contribuye a incorporar una visión más amplia de la cultura y las artes en nuestras comunidades. dado que la cultura y el arte se interpretan de acuerdo a las perspectivas de cada persona y dependen de factores que incluyen dónde se vive, cómo se vive y a las posibilidades de esto, es para nuestra organización sumamente importante que todo evento clasificado como cultural y artístico sea inclusivo y a las posibilidades de que todos los que se interesen puedan participar, porque la cultura y el arte es una forma de vida a la cual todos tenemos derecho. Agradecemos su atención infinitamente. Somos rocas, somos damas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Our next public comment form was received from Dr. Michael Quantz. Are you present, doctor?
I am.
Go ahead, Dr. Quantz, you got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Mendez, commissioners, City of Brownsville staff. Thank you for all of your work during these very challenging times. I'm here representing the Brownsville Society for the Performing Arts in support of the Arts and Culture Committee and Task Force. Many thousands of individuals have more than simply experienced momentary diversion through arts and culture in our community. In collaboration with the City of Brownsville, Brownsville Society for the Performing Arts, and many other entities and organizations and individuals in our community, these people have had our lives permanently enriched. The events and projects like these are the core of contributions to over a generation of our people in Brownsville. For the Brownsville Society for the Performing Arts, we can look to our mission as being exactly in line with what the Commission for Arts and Culture wishes to attain. The BSPA mission for our community is focused on these areas: superior arts, culture, civic partnerships which stem from those, education, also enriched by these, and downtown development. It is very clear the economic drivers and catalysts that are emerging constantly from the arts are an important builder to our economies. We are interested in building these partnerships to enhance the quality of life and prosperity, also through local economic and tourism growth for our city via the arts. This is always our goal. Our projects hire and involve dozens, hundreds, aiding the local economy through specific premium events that attract others to our city, aid local businesses, and provide a significant quality of life enticement for those who might relocate here. Additionally, as you know, the Brownsville Society for the Performing Arts, under the guidance of the late and great George Ramirez, has a history of providing long-term, multifaceted events like the Brownsville Latin Jazz Festival for 24 years, involving thousands of attendees, tens of thousands, in fact. The Brownsville Guitar Festival, which last year directly had contact with over 800 students in our community. The Flamenco Festival, which is a celebration of Spanish art that imbues our community on a regular basis now with this annual festival of a European flavor to our celebrations. And of course, there are other projects like the George Ramirez Performing Arts Academy. And George, as you know, as BSPA president, was the driving force behind the HUD project, which created this academy, a $5.8 million project. The focus was to serve low-income families through an El Sistema-inspired program of music instruction for the first ever Brownsville Youth Orchestra. And
you're out of time, Dr. Quantz. Thank you so much. Great voice.
Yes, I was gonna say, it felt like I was watching like a movie or something, like a narrator.
It's great. Next speaker. Thank you, Dr. Quantz. Next speaker.
Okay, the next speaker is Lydia Garza. Lydia, are you present?
Yes, hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, ma'am. You got 3 minutes.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to thank you guys for reporting COVID updates. I want to thank you guys also for changing the COVID-19 threat matrix level recently to a level 3 since the decline. And regarding COVID numbers shared on the website, I have been taking a close look at it just to kind of put things in perspective. But I'd like to respectfully ask the city of Brownsville to share with our community what those COVID numbers mean in percentages. For example, the graphs do display this information, but for example, with the death total, one would have to go in there and calculate. And so it sometimes can get quite confusing to people, when you read that. So I have 2 questions I'd like to submit just to obtain some more information. And I'm taking this data from the website. Like Brownsville's population is 190,261. The deaths, and this is all data up to date, but the deaths due to COVID is 458. The confirmed COVID cases in Brownsville, it indicates that it's still 7,982. I do know these probably aren't totally up to now, and so they're subject to change. But my first question is, so based on those numbers in Brownsville and based on the total population, what percentage of people have actually acquired COVID? I ran my numbers and, I'm not great at math, so I want to make sure and check with you guys and get that feedback. But my answer shows that it's 4.195% of the total population in Brownsville. And then my other question is, what percentage of the population in Brownsville has passed away or died of COVID so far? And my calculations came out to 0.2407. Again, 0.2407. So I appreciate if we could have some kind of information available on the site just to kind of clarify that. And then lastly, I just wanted to bring up, I noticed that some of the parks in Brownsville aren't really closed off. There's one park that's on Central Avenue, and there's another one in Oliveta Park. And I just want to see if there's any plans for the city of Brownsville to open up the sports park in the north side, which is the, our sports park on the north side of the available as you're coming into Brownsville. I noticed the rims are not on those or available for the students. And I know we're trying to restrict still the ability for people to play, together in groups because it is a high contact sport. But as far as families, if they choose to go out there and they want to go out and play as a family, what date would that be? And so we're asking the city if they can kind of give us a plan as to when they see that maybe coming up in the near future. We have some seniors graduating. Some of them want to continue to polish up their skills and maybe don't have a rim at home and they'd like to be able to go out to a park and play. So if you guys could let us know, we'd really appreciate it. But we thank you guys for all your time and everything that you're doing up to now.
Thank you so much, Ms. Garza. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is consent agenda items 1 through 2.
Do we have any motions?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, the next item is, it's a public hearing, which would require us to go into, to take out of order and do executive session prior to this item. So either we can do executive session now, take up the public hearing, or we move that to the end and we take up the items for individual consideration. Does the commission have a preference?
Leave it till the end,
You want to leave the public hearing to the end, Juan?
I would say.
Okay, that's fine. Then let's go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and take up the items for individual consideration at this point.
All right, items for individual consideration. Item 1, discussion and action to approve the fiscal year 2021 budget of the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation.
I have a question. Do we have to make a motion to take them out of order?
I don't, from what I recall, the council said last meeting we don't. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and City Commission. This is Mario Lozoya with GBEC. We sent in the presentation and we can start with slide 1. That's That's not GBIC.
It's BCIC. This is Brownsville Community Improvement. The one that's on is Greater Brownsville. Just give us a minute, Mr. Lozoya, we'll get it squared away. Thanks.
While they're bringing the slides up, what we did is we added content to the latter portion of the same presentation we presented last year, which is the area where several commissioners asked the majority of the questions in. Okay, so again, starting with the overall budget. Yes, go ahead. Slide, please. Yes, thank you. So starting with the overall budget, can you go back one, please? One back, please. Yes, thank you. Again, starting with your, oh no, that's, yeah, one.
Yeah. Hold on, there's a delay because it's in a different format, but is that the one you needed that says?
Yes. No, I'm sorry.
One before that.
One before that. It's titled Summary of Budget. Yes.
That's it.
Yes, right there. Okay, so again, we had help from the City of Brownsville finance team to reconcile these numbers. You can see that in July 2020, our fund balance is 12.8 million, with a typical revenue of 1% is 5 million. Interest earned is 153,000. Total of 18 plus million. So that's just a summary of the overall budget. We are going to present two different budgets, the operating budget and then activities budget. Just for content from last time, the activities budget is the one that was requested to have more content, and that's what we did in this particular presentation. And also to show you that in the last area there, that we have some commitments going in through 2021, both contract commitments for job creation and also, as you know, the commitment for the airport, and those are reflected there at 2.6 million in total. So in the end, we'll end up with almost the same kind of budget as we started at the beginning of the year. Okay, next, please. Next, please. Yes. Also wanted, like we did last time, inform the mayor and the commission that there were recovered funds in 2020, and I'll explain those. The first part, you see that we recovered some monies from UTRGV from different contracts. One of them from an innovation center that never materialized, and the window of opportunity was expired, so we recovered 500,000 from that. You're so familiar with the Stargate issue. GBIC before our time had also donated some money there, and we recovered some money from that. Some canceled contracts, that those three areas there are contracts that never really materialized. The performance was never completed, so monies were never issued to those three companies. So we asked City Finance to just put those dollars into the general fund. The next area are companies that did perform, however, they did not perform at 100%. So those are dollars that were initially committed in the year prior, but were not paid out. So some dollars were paid out, but not 100%. And you can see the dollars that were not paid out. And then obviously due to COVID, we didn't travel and we didn't do some certain things. So as of August 2020, over $700,000 were not spent from the operational budget. So in total, there's 1.7 million that would not be spent, that were originally intended to be spent. Okay, next slide. Next, please.
Mario, I have a quick, I'm sorry, just real quick before we go on. I have a quick question. On those recovered funds, are we at risk of losing any of those companies, or were they okay and understood they didn't meet the performance measures?
I'm sorry, can you go back one, please? One back, please. I believe that was Commissioner Tetro. If you can be specific on what item are you?
All-Star Paragons.
Oh, I see. The three companies that are on canceled contracts?
Yes.
Right, so they never proceeded to provide any information that they performed as required by the contract. We did visit with them, they came here. The companies are still operating, except they didn't grow the numbers that they thought they were going to grow. So the operation did not expand like they thought they were going to expand. So we did give them the opportunity to engage us even further, but they agreed to not proceed with the contract. So the board agreed to move those companies.
But nobody's leaving, right?
No, ma'am. No, they're still operating. They just were not in a position to grow like they thought they were.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next slide. One more. So the operating budget essentially is the same budget as was presented last year with a small reduction of about $100,000. You should have the itemized portion of it. As you can see, it's essentially, like I said, the same budget that was presented last year with a lesser amount. However, in the next slides are new items that were not presented before, and we can go to the next slide. Right, so I took the liberty of adding numbers to the left, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So on the following slides, we're going to discuss each one to more detail, item 1, item 2, item 3, and item 4. But this one is a quick summary. We will present a request for some funding for 511 Industrial Corridor, some job development and training, some space-related activities, and professional studies. I believe that Mr. Ramiro Gonzalez from the city of Brownsville will speak to a couple of those items, specifically the space-related activities and the professional studies. To give you some background, the city, about maybe, I'm gonna say, two JBIC board meetings ago, presented some opportunities in this space. So the board agreed to allocate some dollars based on that request. And I'll let Mr. Gonzalez speak to those as we get to that point. Next slide, please. Next, please. Okay, so item number 1 from the prior slide is broken up into 4 areas. One of them is we are in the middle of a master planning process already. We did go through an RFP. Gorey Architects were awarded the contract. So we're allotting just some monies to finish paying that out. There in the planning, we did get permission from UP Rail to add a rail spur. That money would reflect just the actual spur start into the 511 park. The understanding is if a client comes into the park, they would pay for their portion of the rail. So this is not reflective of the entire rail potential. And again, we're working with the city, with UP Rail, with Gorey Architects, and obviously with PUB also to make sure that we're all including in them for input on this particular infrastructure. There's also there's a drainage ditch that goes through the entire property. Should another client come into that area, we would have the need to move the drainage ditch. So we're working with the drainage district to make sure that we're in compliance with their parameters. However, these are not for sure expenditures. They're just in the event that there is a client to come into the area, would have some monies to support the ditch effort to move it over. And then marketing related specific to the industrial park, we're asking for some dollars specifically for that. And the total would be 1.4 dedicated for the 511 industrial park development and infrastructure. If there aren't any questions, we can go to the next slide. Job workforce development and training. For the past few years, GBIC has funded VITA, so we're continuing to allot some dollars for VITA. The board during the last board meeting approved $200,000 for the following year, for fiscal year 2021. And then the Workforce Commission does have some availability for matching grants in the high demand area. So we're hoping that we do have a client commit into the industrial corridor soon. And should there be a need for workforce in a high demand space, we'll be able to get a matching grant from the Workforce Commission. If it's not available, then this money will not be utilized. That's just standing by in the event that we do have that opportunity. If there aren't any questions, we can go to the next slide.
I'm sorry, why did the board reduce the VITA funding? What was the reasoning?
I believe the chairman is on. We can answer that. And we also have a board member, Mr. Sanchez, that can.
I can address that. The VITA has been receiving over a long period of time, and I'm talking about 10 years, approximately $300,000 a year. There was a feeling, I think, on the board's part that they were becoming overly dependent on us and not trying to seek additional funding sources. And we're just basically, for lack of better words, taking us for granted on this funding. And so there was a dialogue that's actually been taking about 4 or 5 months of trying to motivate them to obtain additional sources of funding. And then we would provide additional matching grants if they were able to do that. At the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about it, and the made a motion to award them $200,000, and it was seconded and passed. The form of their performance is now under a lot of scrutiny, and it's been proving out that they're actually doing a very good job of it. So we feel that in the years to come, perhaps this could grow if they were able to motivate other funding sources to participate along with VITA, along with GBIC in their efforts.
And I'll add to that we did commit to support in finding them alternative sources in other areas, Workforce Commission specifically, and grants that are relevant to their mission.
Well, I wholeheartedly disagree with that, but okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, next slide, please. So if Mr. Gonzalez is on, if he can, his comments.
Yes, sir. Mayor, commissioners, if you look at the new space, the space technology cluster, economic cluster, it's really broken down into 6 different categories. And real quick, the categories are there are launch related companies, there are satellite and orbital infrastructure related companies, habitat, life sustaining in space. There are data analytics companies. There are also propulsion companies, and there are planetary companies. Planetary companies being those that develop technology to support human presence on the moon or Mars or other celestial bodies. And so, you know, as you all know, currently we have SpaceX, and they are really in the launch and propulsion business more than any other thing. But we are, you know, we are missing out on, there are around, there are different numbers, but there are around 600 companies and at a variety of funding stages. So the new space industry is so new that, you know, you kind of have to think about economic development in a different model. So you're not necessarily, you're not going to, you know, there are only very few companies that are recruitable under the old model of chasing, you know, companies that have hundreds and hundreds of jobs already, right? And so we already have that one, luckily. But there are, like I said, there are around 600 companies that we know of that are, you know, looking for opportunities, for funding opportunities. And so really what this budget in front of you shows is kind of a first start and a first, just kind of a first investment into this strategy. And really it starts with, you know, building off you know, some of the successes we've had with Expanding Frontiers. The Pan Am building has more space that can be used to recruit companies, small companies that want to come to Brownsville and establish some sort of presence. The idea here, much like Expanding Frontiers, is that this is kind of a first place where they land, and you know, eventually, you know, once the eBridge Center is up and running, they would come to the eBridge Center. But some might actually prefer an airport location for, you know, some of their studies or whatnot. So having a building that's ready to go is critical. Obviously, marketing in any economic development effort, you have to have marketing. So this is, you know, this category of new space marketing is really, once again, building off the brand that we built last year with New Space Brownsville and the launching of Expanding Frontiers. You know, becoming a part of the conversation of new space and also being a destination. With that being said, you know, with upstart companies, startup companies, you know, we propose the New Space Matching Grant Fund. So, you know, this could be in a variety of issues, as it says there. It could support companies by purchasing equipment, building capacity, job creation, and, you know, all grants and incentives are given on a performance-based metric. We think that this could also be, you know, in partnership with BCIC's startup fund, but this would be, you know, specifically space related, whereas BCIC's startup fund it covers all companies. That being said, BCIC did award, I believe, 2 grants to 2 space companies already under their existing program. And so next slide, please. On the next slide, it has another professional studies. And so really, you know, we don't claim to be experts. We're not the experts. But the idea would be to find experts in the new space community that could help us identify some of these companies, vet the companies, and then, you know, get us at the table with these companies. And so that is what we think that amount works out to be. We have already had some calls from potential space companies, And so we look forward to having this funding to be able to accelerate our dive into this economic development cluster. So with that, I will kick it back to, if there aren't any questions, I will kick that back to Mario.
My only concern, Ramiro, is that you stay in touch and in the loop with SpaceX, because I would hate for you to lure a company you're not comfortable with being near them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, these are companies that are probably going to want to be close because they might be providers, they might not, they might just want to be in Brownsville and nothing related to SpaceX. So we don't know, but we absolutely, we maintain a communication with SpaceX for sure.
Okay, great. That's the only thing, my only concern.
And yes, Commissioner Tetro, I had a phone conversation with Alma about 2 weeks ago, and we're getting another one because I understand they are adding more jobs. And I told her that we want to keep in touch with Adam and see if there's anything that we can do to help in that space. And our intent is to keep in touch with SpaceX, to your point.
Thank you. That was a lot of work to bring them here. So please take care of that. Take care of them.
Yes, ma'am. Next slide. So in conclusion, between the two budgets, the operating budget and the other activities, the 4 areas that we just presented, the total is 3.3. So our request is approval for the fiscal year 2021 budget.
Does that conclude your presentation, Mr. Lozoya?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any questions or any comments from the commission?
I do.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner Munguia, or is that Commissioner Kama?
It's me. It's Calvin. The $700,000+ that were held over from last year. Can you go into a little bit more detail? That sounds like a lot of money that wasn't
Yes, sir.
spent, that was allocated.
Yes, sir. Most of it, the large amount was due to 2 headcounts that we have not hired. We didn't think that we needed to move too quickly into that since we're not really traveling due to COVID. So large majority was in base pay of 2 individuals that we did not pay out. And also the travel portion, both for the staff and for the board. We did minimal traveling. And so there was a lot of savings in that space.
Okay, anybody else?
I do. Or can you hear me?
Yes, is that Commissioner Galansky?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, go ahead.
So because the salary is not broken down into details, does that mean that employee salaries are being increased from the previous fiscal year?
No, ma'am.
No? And so but you still want to increase to 7 employees?
We budgeted for 6 employees. We budgeted for 1 less. And our intent is to hire 2 in this next fiscal year.
Okay. So there's an annual, or your particular employment contract provides for an annual bonus, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you awarded that bonus? And if so, is it going to be paid out in fiscal year 2021?
No, ma'am. We have not gone into any discussions regarding the bonus.
Okay. You also say that the JBIC board approved a 3% contribution to so wouldn't you still have to account for it in case you do get it?
If I may, Mayor, as to warning as to scope.
Okay. Well, but in the budget, if he is awarded a bonus, shouldn't it be included in the budget prospectively?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Can I just point something out to the attention that maybe they forgot? All the checks by the city of Brownsville. Every time we spend money, we have to go to the city of Brownsville and ask permission. So there's nothing that's going to be hidden from the city of Brownsville on what's being done by Jeff. Everything is brought to you before we do it. And your finance department is the one that cuts the paychecks to everyone.
So may I proceed?
Go ahead.
So also in that budget, it says that the Civic Board approved a 3% contribution to employee retirement accounts. Is that a match of employee contributions to their own retirement accounts? Or is it a contribution by JBIC made regardless of employee contributions to their own retirement accounts?
Ma'am, I don't know, Mr. Granado is on the line, but it's the same. It's almost equal to what the city of Bronzeville would offer on a retirement account.
So it's not something additional from previous years?
I'm sorry, you broke up.
It's not something, it's not an additional perk that was offered to employees for fiscal year 21 that was not offered before?
It was the same offering as it has been offered before. No, there's no change to that.
Also, when you came on board 2 years ago, you launched the We Grow Our Own initiative. What has that initiative accomplished and how much funding are you budgeting for it in the upcoming fiscal year?
Yes, ma'am. So that particular initiative was a 1-year funded initiative. We're not funding it for the following fiscal year. The contract has ended. And I believe that was your question. If we're allotting funding for that, we're not, because it is not an active program anymore. The funding last year was to contract a agency, in this case RGB League, to help in reaching out to potential partners and collect data. That has been completed, and now GBIC is working on that data. We already we acquired the partnerships. We're just following up on the partnerships and creating activities to mitigate those particular targets that we identified through the partnership. So there's no funding required. Therefore, we did not include it in the fiscal year 21 budget.
Okay, and then my last question, your budget for fiscal year 21 contains $90,000 for professional services, such as the annual audit and legal services. Well, yesterday afternoon, the JBIC board and the city commission received letters from an attorney claiming to represent the executive director. Should JBIC budget for additional legal services, given that the executive director hired an attorney to represent him against the board of directors and the city commission?
Ma'am, that was not relevant to the budget. That expense is not attached to the budget.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? Thank you, Commissioner Galansky. I have one last question, Mr. Lozoya. If there's any changes, let's say any of the space initiatives or any other initiative, or maybe there's something new that comes around that that you may be interested in funding this coming year, would that just be by way of a line item adjustment, something like that?
Yes, sir. Typically, we would obviously would take it to the board. If the board agrees to it, then we would take it to city commission, and we would request an amendment to the budget and pending city commission's decision.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Any other questions? Do you have any motions?
Table the approval of the budget.
Say that again, Commissioner, I'm sorry.
I'll move to table approval of the budget.
Okay, we have a motion to table approval of the budget. Is there a second on that? Hearing no second, that motion would die. Do we have any other motions?
Move to approve it.
Yeah, I'll second, but I will say that I'm very disappointed that GBIC doesn't see the value in VIDA, because that was one of the programs that GBIC has been the most successful with, and so many people have been able to get their education through it. So that truly disappoints me, but I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
We have one nay from Commissioner Galansky. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sanchez and Mr. Lozoya and Mr. Severe for being here.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks. Thank you.
Item number 2, discussion and action to approve the fiscal year 2021 budget of the Brownsville Community Improvement Corporation.
Honorable Mayor, City Commission, I hope y'all can hear me well. I'm finally getting to test my audio here. I will go ahead and
Just fine, Josh. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the fiscal year 2021 proposed budget on behalf of the Brownsville Community Improvement Corporation. We might encounter some lagging issues like we did in the prior item. My presentation has also been provided in a PDF file. But I'm going to go ahead and try to run through the budget, hoping that each commissioner and mayor has taken the time to be able to review the extensive packet that we went ahead and attached for your city commission meeting for today. But some of the takeaways that I would like to highlight is some additional revenue sources that come in the form of grants and land sales on behalf of the BCIC that have compensated for some of the losses that we've sustained from sales tax revenue coming into the city. In addition to that, we wanted to make sure we maintain this lean, conservative approach in our budget. So we're utilizing $4.6 million as projected sales tax revenue, which is a trend that has been included and adopted for the past 5 years. In addition to that, there were some operational savings that we have experienced this fiscal year that we are going to go ahead and roll over into our upcoming fiscal year so that we don't have this growing dependency this upcoming fiscal year on sales tax revenues coming in, as we are very well aware that the sales tax revenues might be erratic or volatile. We might experience some negative declines in a couple months due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to that, we're also proposing an increase to our rainy day fund from 1.5 million to 2 million. Again, this rainy day fund that we have adopted previously prior to my tenure coming in, to be able to have a fund to sustain our operations and have the same economic impact that we can provide for the community, for the city, and for the region as an economic development group. In addition to that, we did see some unforeseeable expenditures increase in our marketing and communications department. We did do this increase substantially due to the fact that we had to pivot and create an economic development program that can sustain all the businesses affected by COVID-19 in our community. Therefore, we did see an increase in expenditures for both production and for traditional and untraditional advertisement due to the fact that everything that we had to pursue was virtual. And so you will see some increases in those line items for our operational budget. On top of that, the team and the board is very excited to be able to announce that for the first time in BCIC's history, we will have a program with a fund cap of $1 million to be able to support public-private partnerships, quality of life projects, and also be able to pursue economic development projects that are suitable for a Type B economic development group. So proceeding into that, those are some of the key takeaways. I will go ahead and just talk briefly on some of the line items that we have for operational expenditures. We did see some increases on FICA. These numbers are provided by the city's finance department. And we also saw a slight increase on our personnel, primarily due to the fact that we are taking some of the city services that were provided historically to BCIC, such as accounts payable and payroll. And we're going to go ahead and adopt them and have them in-house. So we had to increase responsibilities to one of our employees. Therefore, we had to increase in a salary adjustment. And therefore, we made that representation on our proposed budget. In addition to that, we also went ahead and proceeded to reduce some of the budgeted amounts for some of our day-to-day operational costs, such as office supplies and meeting-related expenditures. This is, a no-brainer. We went ahead and found that we did see a substantial decrease in operational expenditures due to COVID-19 and what that has brought forth. So we made those reflections on our proposed budget. In addition to that, maintenance of our building, we are currently situated in the Young House. We do have a historical building that we can take care of. And we just went ahead and proposed the same amounts and work alongside the city, since the city owns the building, to be able to pursue any type of repairs for a historical home. In addition to that, we've kept Furniture and fixtures equally the same. Machinery and equipment that is no longer needed due to the fact that we moved in a couple years back, and there's no need to be able to hire or to be able to rent out or purchase any machinery or equipment. So therefore, we did see a reduction in that. In the next page 7 is where you'll see those slight increases in marketing and advertisement. We do foresee that we're going to have an increase in expenditures for fiscal year 2021 due to the fact that we have some new funds that we'll be utilizing to continue sustaining and supporting businesses impacted by COVID-19. In addition to some of the new programs that we launched, such as Startup Texas, we foresee that we will have another virtual event against the original intent of doing an in-person event. And we're doing this to ensure the public safety of those that participate in this event. So therefore, we do have a slight increase in that. Another notable reduction that we saw is in the auto allowance. In my economic development role as ED director for BCIC, I do not have an auto allowance in my contract, so therefore we're suggesting that we just strip that as well. The way we get reimbursed as staff and as members of our board is that any mileage reported for travel that has been incurred outside of city limits is typically how we produce travel reimbursement. And that travel reimbursement typically goes on line item 767, just as a reference. In addition to this, we've eliminated some unemployment insurance premiums as recommended by the city's finance department, as well as some contingency items. And so therefore our totals are represented on page 8 on line item, or actually below line item 876. Moving forward, I'm going to go ahead and break down some of the revenues as mentioned early on in the key takeaways in the beginning of our slide. We are utilizing the same projected sales tax revenue based on 4 to 5 year trends of 4.6 million. We do have an EDA grant for our eBridge project of 900,000. We were successfully awarded a HUD grant of $500,000 to be able to support COVID-19 affected businesses. And we also successfully completed a land transaction, a sale of that was currently owned by the Brownsville Sports Park, and the sale proceeds are as detailed on line item 4 on page 9. So the moving forward with the administrative costs, some additional administrative costs that are seen. We do have $10,000 on page 10, line item 6 for BCIC board meetings. We do not know with exactitude and precision as to when our board will be able to meet again in person. But when we do, we typically utilize some training and meeting related expenditures from this line item. Especially when we have new board members coming in, we tend to precede them with an introductory meetings and a series of other follow-up meetings to make sure that we get them very well acquainted with sales tax use and things like the Public Information Act, Open Meetings Act, et cetera. We do have the same legal services that we've contracted initially, and that remains the same. We did see a reduction in the Brownsville Sports Park M&O annual agreement from $520,000 to $250,000. We are going to be working much closer in collaboration with City Manager's Office to be able to pursue the right type of activities for the Brownsville Sports Park, as collectively we also embark in completing the development of that park by allowing the private sector to also invest. And so we're pursuing some planning measurements moving forward, master planning that entire corridor so that we can make sure that whatever is suggested is actually feasible for the market and allows not only the city of Brownsville, but BCIC to begin reducing some of the subsidizing that takes place historically that has taken place for the Brownsville Sports Park. In addition to that, the BCIC operations, that's a number that has been taken from the prior breakdown that I was given, that I presented before this slide. And moving forward are self-directed initiatives. And this is really where the economic development activities take place. As I mentioned in my key takeaway slide, our economic impact grant is increasing to $1 million. We're doing a combination of rollover as well as merging some of our previously selected or budgeted line items, such as the Job Creation Incentives Fund and the Historic Rehabilitation Initiative. Those funds are essentially merged and then put into the economic impact grants, as well as added some additional funds from some of the revenues and savings that we took to be able to meet that $1 million economic impact grant. We do have some projects lined up for this already. One of them being the master planning of the Brownsville Sports Park corridor, as well as some other projects that I can't divulge in great detail since we're pursuing them in an executive session for the Brownsville Community Improvement Corporation Board of Directors meeting. In addition to that, we did give a breakdown of BIG as well for its rent subsidy program, interior and exterior and signage programs as well under BIG. I know that it might be alarming to see a reduction in that. So I'm just going to simply state a reminder that the Business Improvement and Growth Plan was initially approved and adopted as a 3-year pilot program. So we allocated funds for a 3-year program necessary for us to be able to continue to collect data, see what success stories have come out of it, see what new challenges have been brought forth so that we can continue to adjust and fully release a fully fledged economic development project intended to address a lot of the investment and development opportunities and challenges that are being faced in our historic downtown, with the possible caveat of increasing the boundaries of our program, not only to encompass the historic downtown. In addition to this, we've also allocated the same amount for culture and destination city events. 50,000 is what we've allocated in fiscal year 2020. We propose the same for fiscal year 2021. This pot is usually tapped into when we pursue partnership projects alongside the CVB. There's a direct correlation when you take a look at the attraction and the visitors intake that we see for the city of Brownsville in relation to the sales tax that's also being generated. So we see a lot of value in making sure that we partner up with the city of Brownsville to be able to pursue cultural and city destination events that will ultimately impact our sales tax revenues coming in. In addition to this, as I mentioned, Startup Texas grant will continue to go into its second phase. We've allocated $100,000 into this line item. It was the same proposed amount for fiscal year 2020. However, we have placed an expectation for this program that will result in inviting the private sector to also contribute into this fund. And each dollar that is contributed is going to go directly into the startup and entrepreneurship efforts that we're fostering within BCIC. We've seen a huge uptick in interest from the private sector. And so we want to be able to take advantage of that because we understand that large industrial leaders or industry leaders in our community and our region are also equally as invested in making sure that innovation continues to be fostered in the Rio Grande Valley through entrepreneurship and small business development. So we expect for $100,000 of our funds to also be topped with another series of investments done by the private sector to be able to encourage and foster innovation and entrepreneurship. Now, the Startup Texas also has a different component to it. The Startup Texas program in itself is driven by innovation, but there's also a resiliency effort component into it. And that really relates to the COVID-19 efforts that we've done since April. And I've gone ahead and presented $500,000. This is the proposed amount that HUD approved for our upcoming program, which, I'm proud to be able to inform you all it will be a PPP-like program, very forgivable loan in the amounts of $5,000 to $10,000 for businesses that are continuing to fall through the cracks despite all the assistance that the federal government has provided. We're happy to be able to contribute another $500,000 to be able to assist these businesses. Expanding Frontiers is also going into its second year, so the amount that is presented and budgeted is for close to $193,000. This, of course, depends on evaluations that are performed by the board. It is not an amount that is automatically triggered. Evaluations do have to be performed to be even considered for the year 2 funding that has been allocated. In addition to this, eBridge project has also been again presented to our proposed budget. This is a line item that has to be pretty much set aside for our budget due to EDA requirements now having a $900,000 commitment for this project. We did see an increase of $300,000. We're currently finalizing the architecture and engineering phases of this project. And what we've noticed is that we have a neighboring project as well that's going on at the moment with the new communications and marketing department building. And we've identified some synergy between the activities that are happening in that building and the activities that are happening at the eBridge Center on 13th and Adams Street. And so the increase of proposed budget is directly going to relate to what type of features we can go ahead and enable between Building A and Building B, since we were both going to be sharing a corridor and a courtyard as well. So we've seen some design options, and I want to emphasize these are options. These are not set on stone and have been agreed to, that will increase the cost of the proposed budget amount. However, once we get to a closer stage where we can present a rendering and a floor plan that will be presented to the permitting department, as well as all those that are included in the permitting process, to be able to gauge the community and stakeholders and be able to dictate and find out and identify which of these options we're going to stick with. So therefore, that explains the increase of the 2.7 million to 300 or to 3 million in proposed fiscal year 2021. And keep in mind that 900,000 of the dollars that are being budgeted for this line item will be reimbursed by EDA dollar for dollar. Again, we've also seen a reduction in board contingency. These are, instead of having organizational led projects or project leads or ideas that come up, the board also has an opportunity to be able to present some leads. The board contingency amount is reduced from 85,000 to 50,000. We've seen a change in direction. We've been more team oriented, team focused. Typically, if the staff makes a recommendation, it's also a board recommendation and vice versa. So we've deemed it necessary to be able to reduce that amount as well and continue to pursue projects as we've designed them to be produced. In addition, our sports park and airport debt service is a line item that I wish I can see some reductions in, but we have a couple more years to go to be able to see that completely gone. The amounts are provided by the city finance department. And just for reference, we're on page 12 on the PDF for those that are working the system in Cisco. The total amount for line item 32 on page 12 remains the same. For line item 35, this is our rainy day fund. This is part of that key takeaway that I had mentioned initially. We would propose to add another 500,000 to this so that we can have a $2 million rainy day fund. And in the next page, in page 13, we see a visual breakdown of exactly what is our self-directed initiatives. That's, again, the economic development activities that BCIC invests in. And we also see an administrative expenditures compared to the activities of what the organization should be involved in terms of economic development. We also see a 1% contingency fund and a 24% debt service, and that comes in the shape of the Brownsville Sports Park and in the airport debt service that we've tagged along a couple of years ago. And I wanted just to make sure that we have that visual representation so we can see exactly how lean our operations have been. And just before we go into the next page, I did want to state we do have a fund balance that was presented in our last board meeting that happened on Thursday, the 24th of this month. We do have a little over $5.1 million in restricted funds. Again, we currently have 1.5 million in our rainy day fund and a little over 3.7 million in our unrestricted funds for a total of 10.4 million as a total fund balance. And moving forward to my last slide on page 14, we are embarking into a BCIC strategic plan. Dean Barber, the consultant that we have hired, may have already reached you by email to be able to schedule some interviews, some one-on-one interviews that will be used for our new SWOT analysis that will derive an economic development strategic plan. These are some of the points that we've been looking into in regards to BCIC and its involvement as the community's Type B economic development group. But in addition to this, I also wanted to state that we've had some large successes for fiscal year 2020, despite the fact that COVID came and put a wet towel in the community and pretty much dampened the progression that we've been making in terms of our economic development prowess. And we did have 2 successful projects land. Project Line, which is the call center Maximus expanded over to the Boca Chica corridor. That provided the community with 300 jobs at the time. And we were able to successfully do this in collaboration with the city. The actual recruitment resulted in very little incentivization in the form of permit acceleration and permit processing. We did set aside, and we actually approved as an organization, $75,000 or $65,000 to be correct, to be able to help out the business in terms of job creation incentives. However, those were not used, and the company actually contacted us and informed us that they've been very happy with the support that the city's been providing in terms of the permitting process. And as many of you who know about commercial development, time is money. So I applaud the efforts of the city and our staff at BCAC to be on top of that project to ensure it crosses that finishing line. In addition to that, we also have Project Drop that has been undergoing the permitting process at the moment. We will actually be making an announcement for this project in the upcoming weeks. They've asked that once their construction project is already finalized, that they can go ahead and make this formal announcement as a team, including the City of Brownsville and BCAC. We were also successful, as Ramiro Gonzalez in the prior item stated, we were able to successfully fund 5 businesses with the $100,000 we allocated for the Startup Texas event. And due to this, we've received a massive support, again, as I mentioned, from the private sector, and we're looking to making this fund a bit more robust while we include private dollars as well in that fund. One of the notable successes that we also accomplished for fiscal year 2020 is the fact that through the limited funding that we allocated as an economic development group, we actually allocated $450,000 for this COVID-19 business assistance program. We actually were able to leverage, and this number might actually be a little bit misleading because we did approve our last round this past Thursday, so we needed to update this number. But with $450,000, we were actually able to leverage $9.6 million from both SBA and community lenders, specifically targeting the business community, whether they were small, medium, or large businesses. They were actually impacted and benefited from this large influx of dollars coming into the area to support businesses that were impacted by COVID-19. In addition to that, we also pursued educational assistance during COVID to be able to help businesses switch and pivot from a traditional brick and mortar operation to an online operation as well, or a combination of both. And we were able to do this in partnership with the city and with UTRGV. And BCIC is proud to be able to say that 300 unique businesses received this certification on behalf of the university and the Kauffman Foundation to be able to help out these businesses pivot, as the city now will experience a rule change and we'll begin seeing some sales tax revenues coming in from online sales happening from within the city limits. So this essentially concludes my formal presentation of our proposed budget. And if anybody has any questions, I would be more than happy to entertain them.
Is there any questions from the commission? Mr. Mejia, thank you so much for that presentation. I think I had 3 or 4 questions that I asked you prior to this. Thanks for answering those, and I'm satisfied with the presentation, your responses to the questions I had. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
And by the way, congratulations on your award. I was not here at the last meeting, so I didn't get to congratulate you.
Thank you, Commissioner Techera. That really means a lot.
Thank you, Josh. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Commissioner Gowan.
Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. For discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care.
You too.
Item 3, consideration and action to increase the City of Brownsville purchasing formal solicitation threshold from $35,000 to $50,000 to reflect Texas Local Government Code Section 252.021.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Commissioners. This item was part of our 2020 work plan. The full intent of this item was to provide a little bit more efficiencies in our procurement operations. Those efficiencies will be covered by this presentation. I would like to introduce Jose Perez. He's the interim procurement and contracting manager that worked on this presentation with staff, and turn it over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Granado. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Commission. Next slide, please. So just to have a quick glance, the procurement parameters at the federal level are approximately $250,000, and at the state level right now to date is at $50,000. The current parameters for the city of Brownsville is $35,000. Next slide, please. So some of the benefits for increasing our current threshold, we believe it's going to save time and effort to procure goods and services. It's also going to minimize expenditures associated with procuring goods or services. For example, the advertisement costs that are required in order for us to adhere to the local government rules in procurement. Of course, the value of inflation as well. It allows us to take a snapshot of the services at that moment in time. So instead of kind of taking into consideration some of the variables whenever we're increasing, the CPI, whenever we're going into term contracts, it allows us to maximize on the benefits of that single purchase. And of course, it facilitates that one purchase, like I just mentioned. And more importantly, it simplifies the acquisition process. So this is, I think, extremely important because it allows the departments and ourselves to collaborate in a more efficient manner and in turn provide better services to the community. Of course, and it still adheres to the state threshold of 50,000, like I had mentioned. And again, we want to focus on the efficiency to meet the existing obligations to the community. Next slide, please. So some of the additional opportunities, like we talked about, just to kind of do a quick glance here, is that we want to increase our capability to impact the community by increasing our customer service. We also want to minimize the procurement time. We also want to help the opportunities for our businesses to procure goods and services from local partners. I think this is extremely important, kind of echo some of the different initiatives that we just talked about when we're talking about budgets. And then, of course, the financial side of it is that we're strengthening the economic base of our community because we're able to maximize on the partnerships that we have at a local level rather than going to a little bit more of a regional, state, or national level. And as you can see, this is I really like this information we obtained. Although it's a little bit old, I believe it's really important because it was actually done, and within 8 years they validated the information. So for every $100 you're spending, typically you see a higher investment in the community when you are doing partnerships on a local level rather than a national chain or a larger corporation. Next slide. This is also something that we believe is really important, right? So we continue to encourage local prosperity. I think right now with the COVID dynamics that we've experienced, I think this is extremely important because it helps some of our local businesses. And of course, it keeps us unique, right? What better way of having investments and having impacts on a local level with local partners? And of course, we're investing in the community. We reduce our environmental impact when we start looking at transportation and some of the other second and tertiary things. So we're being more environmentally conscious of our partnerships and our investments. And of course, it allows us to potentially support community groups as we continue to have those local partnerships. They in turn can support some of our community groups. And of course, sometimes you obtain better service because whenever you have a local partnership, it's easier to communicate. The service itself can be a little bit faster as well, better public services, and of course, we create a local ownership. I think this is extremely important. Next slide, please. So again, just to basically close here, we do wanted to outlay our current parameters again from 0 to 3,000 is what we have for single quotes. 3,000 to 35,000 is our current parameters for actual quotes, and anything above $30,000 right now, we actually have to conduct formal solicitations. Next slide. So with that, we just want to close by requesting your approval again to enhance our service to the community and expand local opportunities by increasing our formal solicitation the threshold from 35,000 to 50,000.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Pettis? I had some initial concerns about this. I'm usually hesitant for things like this, but I saw it's only a few transactions on average. I think it was 17 or something like that. So I really don't have an issue with this. I understand it. So do we have any questions or comments from the commission? Motion?
How long has this threshold been in place?
The 35,000 threshold has been there for between approximately 10 years.
It was changed when, very shortly after I came in, like in 2011. It was raised from 25,000 to what it is now, just because so many items were coming to the commission for approval. But if it's only 17 transactions, I don't have a problem, spending that time during the commission meeting to look over it. I just think it's a form of checks and balances. I hope I don't offend anybody by saying that.
And just to add a little bit, these transactions were evaluated over a year's month of time. So yes, it's only 17 transactions. Dollar wise, it only makes up 4% of the total spending of the total solicitations that we have. We had about $24.5 million in solicitations that would go through this process. The 17 only makes up 4%. So we would better manage our efficient times to focus on those bigger ticket items.
Do we have any motions?
To approve.
You have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
We have one nay. Is that Commissioner Tetro?
Yes.
Okay, one nay from Commissioner Tetro. Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 4, consideration and action to award bid to Ferguson Facility Supply for the purchase of a Tenant T7 AMR autonomous floor buffer for Brownsville South Padre Island International Airport in the amount of $68,720.
Hey, good evening, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. The airport is requesting that we purchase this floor buffing machine. This is part of the FF&E. It was not a local manufacturer or anything like the last FF&E that we brought. So because it was it's manufactured somewhere else, it is bought locally, but we thought we needed to bring this to the commission for that reason as a standalone item. So the airport is going to need a new floor buffer for the new terminal, and it was in the spreadsheet that we presented and continue to bring back. So we recommend that we make this purchase.
And I just have to say that I went to the airport and I toured it today, and it is like when I walked in, it took my breath away and I had tears in my eyes because it was so beautiful. And I know that when the community is finally there for the ribbon cutting and opening day or whatnot, they're going to feel the same way. And one thing I did notice, now that you mention it, was how beautiful the floor is and the material that it is. It's not concrete. What is it, Bryant? Do you know?
The particular material the floor is made out of is called Bowmanite. So it's like an engineered concrete floor topping.
Mm-hmm.
That's about the extent I know of it.
Well, all I know is that it was very comfortable. We walked around for about 2.5 hours and my feet still got tired. So I definitely support this to keep that floor clean.
Thank you.
Do we have any motions?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 5, consideration and action to award change order number 12 to Spall Glass Contractors Incorporated for the terminal project at Brownsville South Padre Island International Airport in the amount of $66,323.51.
Again, Mayor and Commissioners, this particular item is a credit of $66,000, but this is actually an offset of a cost that we will be bringing back. So even though we're getting a credit now, we're actually taking a portion of specifically the installation of the jet bridges, and we're taking it out of the Spall Glass contract. we've added some line items, numerous things that needed to be completed by Spa Glass. And so those are actually adds. And then the removal of the Jet Bridge installation is roughly about 200,000. So this is actually somewhere in the neighborhood of $134,000 that will be coming back to award to the installer for the Jet Bridge. But this is, like I said, this is sort of a cleanup change order to add some several line items that are relatively small, and then also to remove that installation cost. So that's why it shows as a credit, even though it's really going to be a cost.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 6 was tabled earlier in the meeting, so at this point then, we would take the executive session item this morning.
The executive session item is consultation with attorney to receive confidential legal advice pursuant to section 551.071 subsection 2 of the Texas Government Code on a matter related to the amendment of Chapter 54, Health and Sanitation, in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter.
Peter, I have a motion to go into executive session.
I move.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we're now in executive session.
It is now 7:43 p.m. and we will go into executive session. open session.
We're back in open session. This is public hearing item number 1.
Okay, let me get my sheet of paper here. I had to shift things around, so. Okay, here it is, the public hearing. Okay, public hearing and action on first reading of ordinance number 2020-1674, amending chapter 54, health and sanitation by adding article 9, contagious and infectious diseases, and dealing with related matters.
Honorable members of the commission, we're proposing this change to Chapter 54 of the Health and Sanitation Code. This ordinance allows the city to provide a swifter manner of addressing any possible threats that the city may face in regards to contagious and infectious diseases. This allows the city through the health authority and the health department to be able to identify threats to the commission in a faster manner, and also the ability to communicate recommendations to the commission in regards to the adoption of local health orders. We're asking for your approval of this item.
Hey, thank you, Counselor. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody that's here on this item? Okay,
Motion to close public hearing.
we have a motion to close. I have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now
Motion
we
to
have-
approve.
Yes, we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
1 nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn in a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.
All right, stay safe, everyone.
It is now 8:08 p.m. and the city commission meeting has ended.